Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we got some promising pop this week. Shame it's also in a week with Vultures 2. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. I try to appreciate weeks like this, the summer lulls in swing, but there's a couple modest changes, most of which I am happy to talk about. But if you're wondering if I'm going to discuss the mini album bomb that occurred with a certain album sequel, well, those who know how I cover such things, you're already prepared. But suffice to say that it'll get the attention that it rightly deserves, especially when there are more interesting things going on around it. Unfortunately, that's not really true with our top 10, where for another week, a bar song Tipsy by Shaboozey holds sway at the top at number 1. And at this point, I'm not even sure what I need to add. It's dominant in every category and still gaining, from sales to streaming to continued radio momentum. And yeah, I'm shocked we're not seeing that second single getting pushed anytime, but I think that's more a searing indictment on the label, Empire, rather than Shaboozey himself. This is frankly succeeding way better than he could have possibly expected. And I expect that margin to really be maintained against I Had Some Help by Post Malone and Morgan Wallen at number 2, at least for the next week as the streaming holds but radio is slipping into decline. I expect Post Malone's gonna get an album bomb for F1 Trillion that's dropping this Friday, but we have a little bit of breathing room at least before then. Then we got Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar at number 3, which had a surprisingly solid radio week to back up the streaming. It might just hold its own a little bit longer over Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter at number 4. Although with both radio and streaming seeming to have peaked, that might be heading on the downswing. Similar to Million Dollar Baby by Tommy Richmond currently at number 5, where the radio is rather unstable and streaming is falling off fast. Now this opens up the door for Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan up to number 6. Finally, it's got some radio momentum. It actually jumped up on streaming, as well as jumping over Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish, which is up to number 7, which is also getting an even more aggressive radio push, so kind of a bit of a horse race there. Hell, even Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter saw a modest boost to number 8, which might have a fleeting edge on the radio, but does not on streaming, and honestly with radio momentum, we'll have to see. Now the last two songs, they're very much on the way out. I've been calling it for weeks now, and frankly I'm shocked they've lasted this long. Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 9, and the only reason that it's higher than Too Sweet by Hozier at number 10, it's the streaming margin. That happens. And that naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts. And there are a couple big ones in that latter category. And yeah, you know what? I'm happy that Glow by Glorilla managed to snag her year-end list position for 2024. But it is also coming with Get It Sexy by Sexy Red clinching one as well. Hey, at least Lovin' On Me by Jack Harlow is finally gone, long overdue. Now the losers are kind of scattered here. Let's start off with those off the debut. Guy for That by Post Malone and Luke Combs slid to 34. Probably will rebound with the album bomb. Lonely Road by Machine Gun Kelly and Jelly Roll at 59, and Hate Me by Lil Yachty and Ian at 78. Couple that with Did It First by Ice Spice and Central C down to 65, and Illusion by Dua Lipa at 67. Looks like we're getting rid of some of the garbage here. Nice. Then off the return, we had Parking Lot by Mustard and Travis Scott at 97, and the continued losses for Tough by Quavo and Lana Del Rey at 93. Again, not exactly surprising. But outside of those, Who by Jimin slipping back to 24, Fortnite by Taylor Swift featuring Post Malone at 38, it's gonna have a year-end list slot without issue, not really complaining. American Nights by Zach Bryan slipping to 80, Euphoria by Kendrick Lamar at 92, I'm stunned it's held on this long, and Sweet Dreams by Ko Wetzel at 95. Now you can argue there's a bit more of our story with returns this week, notably that Bye 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 by NSYNC is actually back on the charts at 45. But you could probably chalk that up to Deadpool and Wolverine, or simply a point in Justin Timberlake's career that some folks still remember fondly, and honestly, the song's fine. I have no problem that it's back. Because I would argue the better story this week comes in our gains, where even if Kalani by Jordan Atunji got a boost to 26, the rest of the gains are much better. Apple by Charli XCX saw traction to 52. Big Dogs by Hanumankind and Call Me saw a credible jump off the debut to 31. But the big story, once again, Chappell Roan, as Pink Pony Club surged to 29, Casual rose to 62, and Femininomenon is up to 70. And And that's not even the most that happened with Chappell Roan this week. We'll get to it. But it's a sort of pop surge that feels damn near unprecedented, especially for as gradual as it's all been. But before we get to all of that, we got to talk about some of our new arrivals. And you know what? Somewhat unfortunately, we're starting with number 99, Love You, Miss You, Mean It by Luke Bryan.
I'll be climbing up these walls. Your kiss, I want it, need it. Love you, miss you, mean it, baby.
Not gonna lie, feels a little weird seeing new Luke Bryan songs on the Hot 100 these days, as it feels like his era of success is gone a couple times removed, but not so far that he himself would not make sense on the charts. But this particular album rollout has left me with some questions, especially as this is the third single from an album that is promised for this September, where the first single dropped in 2022. And it didn't even crack the top 70. More confusingly, this is a song bucketed onto a 7 quasi-greatest hits EP, and upon listening to the track, I mean, this is it? Sure, it's a bit more organic with the pedal steel, less programmed percussion with the slightly clunkier guitars, but the vocal pickup still doesn't have a lot of expressiveness. It's been a mixing issue for Luke Bryan for years, and the melodic composition feels so rote where the cadence on the chorus feels like it comes from a Luke Bryan hook generator. Now, I actually don't mind the content. They fell in love young, she graduated, moved away, the bridge implies years later she came back, they might have reconnected, and while that line, I'll be climbing up these walls, feels weirdly stilted on the hook, I wouldn't call it a deal breaker, and Luke Bryan still has a good voice, I'll always give him that. But let's be real, Luke Bryan could have released this song at any time, nobody would have really cared, just doesn't feel that memorable to me, that's all. Number 94, Liar by Jelly Roll.
Yeah, I walk right out the fire. Yeah, you try to keep me down, try to put me underground, but I'm only going higher.
Oh god, after Need a Favor, I saw the title of this song and I just got a sinking feeling. I'm not sure I want to hear Jelly Roll call anyone a liar. That speaks to a sourness from him that could really rub me the wrong way. But I'll say it, I was wrong. The liar that Jelly Roll is speaking to are the demons in his own mind that are trying to pull him down a dark path. And this is him giving that devil the double bird with a bluesy acoustic and banjo rollick that leans very heavily on that smoky gospel rock elements on the hook, complete with the backing choirs. And while I don't think the writing goes to any truly dark or challenging territory morally, I think what works best about this song is the faster tempo. This could have very quickly become turgid or overwrought, leaning in Christian rock territory, but with a little bit momentum ramping into the bass on the pre-chorus gives the song more punch. It helps the righteous anger actually have some teeth to it. So yeah, I'm actually not against this at all. It's a pretty good song, a welcome surprise. I'll take it. Number 91, My Kink is Karma by Chappell Roan. I swear, I was just talking about this crossing over, and man, I'm thrilled it did. The last obvious single from Chappell Roan's debut, unless they find a way to make super graphic ultra modern girl a thing, and they probably will. But in this case, more because there's a formula and sound that Chappell Roan is following here, and that is Taylor Swift. That pulsating synth bass against the blocky drum machine, the vocal tracking that drops out just before the hook revs up into gear. This is a Lover-era Taylor Swift song, especially closest to Cruel Summer. Now, I love Cruel Summer, and I really like that album, so I'm generally fine with this, especially given that Chappell Roan's Venom is a bit more targeted and horny than Taylor will usually allow herself to be. Watching an ex melt down and spiral, post attempting to exploit and ruin Chappell Roan's life. And she gets off a little bit on some revenge, wishing you the best in the worst way. And Chappell Roan is such a good performer to own that melodrama with the gleaming edge balanced out wonderfully. Yeah, okay, absolutely terrific song that currently gives her 7 tracks charting on the Hot 100, most of them rising. If you haven't heard this one, give it a shot. Number 89, Highjack by A$AP Rocky featuring Jessica Pratt.
Niggas swear they pimpin', Scotty sippin', get your wife back. How you know you trippin', Flacco different, know you like that. Swipe a pretty bitch right off her feet, this a hijack.
Okay, this collab is less surprising than I think some might expect. A$AP Rocky's got somewhat eclectic taste, so if he recruits one of the more critically beloved underground folk acts of the past several years, and reminds me that I really should check out Here in the Pitch at some point, even if Quiet Signs just did not work for me about 5 years ago, I'll give him credit there. And for this, well, I am reminded that A$AP Rocky worked with Lana Del Rey a lot across the 2010s and probably can't get her now, but also that Jessica Pratt can very handily sell that smoky mystique. She's fine here. I think my larger issue is that, once again, A$AP Rocky might have more taste than talent in the execution. I get the callback to Like That and all the subs thrown at Drake because A$AP Rocky's with Rihanna and Drake is not, but why are you still trying to play like you're out getting more girls, or that Rihanna can't buy you out a dozen times over? The shallowness of some of the fashion flexing just kind of bounces off me because the punchlines feel so flimsy. The most I'll praise is that production's pretty decent. The elegant haziness behind the trap knock, it's an okay vibe, I guess. I just don't think it's quite enough. It's fine, but I can't imagine it sticking around. Even referencing the beef from this year, that's saying something. Number 88. Oh wait, hold on. So now what I'm sure will have some folks chattering, because the last time I just outright refused to cover Kanye West and Vultures 1, I filled up the slots with my arguments as to why. This time, I've got no interest in repeating myself from what, even as I've observed from the fans, to be a lesser project, composed of scraps from dated recording sessions that he's treating as a living document, because why actually finish the album on time, or make promises that you intend to actually keep? And that's been the interesting thing to observe with Vultures 2 and Kanye this year. And for the record, I have not heard the album and I got less than zero interest in checking it out, but it's the larger collapse of Kanye West's larger relevance in 2024. I was sincerely worried that minus competition in that UMG TikTok feud that Vultures might have more staying power, but then Future and Metro Boomin put out Like That with Kendrick Lamar and Kanye was just elbowed out of the picture entirely. He tried to introduce a remix into the conversation but was largely ignored, even by Drake, and from there it seemed like everything Kanye West has done to put himself back in the limelight has largely not worked outside of his fan base. He is not the biggest story of 2024 by any margin, and while unfortunately Carnival was a hit, it's not the rap song that is going to put anyone on a pedestal, and by the end of the year, I don't think many people will care. And the buzz for Vultures 2, even among fans, has been pretty bad. Badly mixed throwaways with bad verses, sometimes overdubbed with AI or repackaged leaks, barely saved by guest features and production, and the production itself is getting shakier, where if Kanye is nuking his social media when the album goes live, not a good sign. And look, I've seen some fleeting defenses of it, a couple songs that folks seem to like, but again, when even the fans are revolting, I have even less reason to care. So yeah, in advance, I'll just say, no worst of the week or dishonorable mention. It's gonna be one of the two charting songs from Vultures 2. Y'all pick what you think would fit the best. Tell me in the comments down below. But in the meantime, number 87. So what I figured I would do instead is acknowledge that a lot of artists have taken influence from Kanye West and might not have gotten the same shine, especially if I can highlight tracks that I think would do better in their stead and could work well for Kanye West fans. So let's start off with one where the influence is flagrant and has been for over a decade, Cruisin' by Childish Gambino featuring Yeet. I'm a little bit surprised this song didn't do more when Childish Gambino saw some album impact, especially for a song I think is really great and could chart. Probably my favorite on the album, and I never thought I'd say that about a song with Yeet. But yeah, the Kanye influence is obvious, especially circa My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. The blocky auto-tune around Childish Gambino's yelping delivery that gets increasingly raw as the bass bubbles up, the warping synths that get even more lush on that outro, the hammering blaring percussion alongside some of the strings, the juxtaposition between Pan-African dreaming with society's fear of you, flying off the edge in your art in an increasingly dystopian world where the personal angst will ultimately surge to the forefront, where Yeet might be the forbidding voice in the contrast. I mean, I don't think it's a far comparison to stuff that Kanye's done before. And yeah, I think the song goes incredibly hard. If this could be a hit instead, I think we'd all be better off. Number 86, Am I Okay by Megan Moroney.
Crying and dying and messing me up. I think I'm really happy. I think I wanna stay. Oh my God, am I okay?
Okay, I still have questions surrounding how they're pushing Megan Moroney's new album, because this title track as the official second single, apparently Indifferent, was just for promo, thank God. Well, it's a bit of an odd choice. Soft focus with somewhat muffled drums, although they could be programmed before that hook brings in the live kit with the guitars picking up a bit more punch alongside the pedal steel. But also for how haggard Moroney's delivery is, you would think this is a song about heartbreak, but no, it's actually the opposite. It's a track where she's realizing that she's falling in love and she can barely believe it. This guy seems to blow past all of her expectations, check off every box, and she can't believe that she's actually happy. And if you've been burned enough times in relationships, that can feel like a very relatable sentiment, especially the cautious weariness and actually accepting it for yourself. I think my niggling issue though comes in the execution. The hook is primed for some big punch-in moments like the "he's good in" line and the big shout-along hook, especially the final lines, but Megan Moroney just does not have the energy or intensity to sell that, which leads to the punch feeling somewhat muted for me. It's still good, I generally like it, but as an album opener and single, it feels indicative of some of the biggest factors that are holding her back for me. That's concerning. All I'll say. Number 83, I Love You, I'm Sorry by Gracie Abrams.
I like to slam doors closed. Trust me, I know it's always about me. I love you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this one was only a matter of time. For some context, this is a quasi-sequel to Gracie Abrams' 2020 song, I Miss You, I'm Sorry, a spare cut where she's trying to parse through the mixed signals of heartbreak and this toxic relationship and breakup. Now, this seems to pick up on the story years later, where instead of yearning for some sort of messy reconnection, she's reconciled that she needs to process her own feelings and move on. The apology's almost to herself, where she sarcastically knows how her expressing all those feelings will look to the larger audience. And while I don't think all her observations cut deep, the very winsome, soft-focus acoustics and strings from Aaron Dessner, they kind of prioritize beauty over all that. I do like the emotional complexity here, where there's a bit of wry humor in recognizing her own culpability in this relationship of falling too fast and not exactly treating the ex well. And the overlay of vocals on the final hook as a callback, it's a good effect in selling it. Of course, the problem here might be Gracie Abrams herself. Again, less the Taylor Swift parallel this time, more Phoebe Bridgers. And that's fine, but it's still missing some more unique character that I wish could complement the writing. And as it is, probably the most I've liked a Gracie Abrams song to date, I'm just still not that impressed. Number 79, Dirty by Jessie Murph and Teddy Swims.
That shit was dirty.
Okay, we don't have to keep platforming Jessie Murph, who appears to actively make every artist she works with worse. There are plenty of women in multiple genres who could fill her role just fine. And now she's working with Oak in order to produce the most canned-sounding vocal lead to date, as she tries for country soulful belting with a lockstep fake clap and a clunky drum machine, where Teddy Swims can't even sound good trying to belt this out. Make no mistake, the production sounds painfully cheap, but I'm not sure how that gets around Jessie Murph trying to be BB Rexa with a wannabe Elle King impression that leaves her at her pitchiest to date. She's not Miley Cyrus. Someone tell her handlers that she does not have the pipes for this. And yet the content somehow makes it worse. Jessie Murph plays a woman who suspects her partner is cheating. She demands to go through his phone. She doesn't believe him when he says it's an old friend, and demands that he either crawl over broken glass to come back to her or just break up, be happy. And then Teddy Swims comes on and there's no evidence he did anything wrong. So now he's playing the guilt trip on top of her for the final hook, and that really doesn't work when her hook doesn't change up. So yeah, this is aggressively bad. If it wasn't for Kanye, this would run away with the worst of the week. But you know what, speaking of that, number 76.
Pull up, yeah, I'll take your bitch. Pull up, kick her out the whip. Pull up, now you on notice. You was feeling my style, feeling my smile, feeling this black skin. You was running your mouth, talking too loud. You wasn't even calling me back then.
Okay, so on the topic of songs that remind me a lot of Kanye West that dropped this year, have any of you been paying attention to how strong house-adjacent R&B has been in 2024? So what if we take some of that vibe and fuse in some more aggressive percussion and distortion that might have come off of Yeezus? Let me introduce you to Black and Mild, full of haunted, bassy panting, chorusing, eerie synths, African shouts, and a truly wild vocal delivery from Channel Tres, who dropped his very solid debut album Head Rush earlier this year. Hell, I'd even argue that the braggadocious come-up flair, the infusion of guitars, the reference to the obvious white girl as the possible stand-in for cocaine, and the proud celebration of blackness in this lane, even as weird vocoders echo over the outro. This could have been on Yeezus, probably could have saved it from that sagging midsection where the momentum just evaporates. It would fit. And for me, this is a killer dance jam, a great genre fusion that I could imagine in a different time Kanye making, and I'm not going to complain that Channel Tres has thoroughly taken over. You probably missed this. You shouldn't have. Number 48.
These rappers is regular food. I bought my bitch some compartment. She think it and call me. She can't fuck no regular dude. See that? See that? Wanna climb the pillar to be that? If you hate me, my nigga, just say that.
But to finish things off, since I'm replacing the posse cut, I'm gonna throw a bone to the fans of Vultures 1 that they probably don't deserve, and feature a producer who worked on that album, and seems to have stood by said decision despite all odds. Apparently he also worked on Vultures 2 on one of the many tracks that Kanye shoved on the back end for deluxe track listings, trying to beat Taylor at her own game, where she put out another reissue of the Torture Poets Department and knocked Kanye West off the #1 spot because she understood the assignment. And yeah, you know what? There's no way in a sane world that JPEGMAFIA would ever land on the Hot 100 on his own. He knows that. But this is a banger that goes off, and there is a part of me that imagines a Kanye West fan gravitating towards it, especially fans of Yeezus or even the modern eras. The creative chopping of the Succession sample against the buzzy, crushing bass, the echoing gothic bells, the snarl guitars on the back half of the song as the strings soar up, the flagrantly confrontational bars juxtaposing his bragging about women and sex, along all the white kids trying to commodify it, the references to God that are all throughout the contorted vocal filters. I mean, if your argument is that only Kanye West can deliver this sort of experimentation, not only did JPEGMAFIA refine this sound over the course of nearly a decade that Kanye went to him, if you dig in the liner notes of Kanye albums, you'll find an ocean of acts in this manner going back to the late 2000s that really have not gotten the shine they should. And what I'm trying to say is that most fans will assign one name to all the experimentation and genius and not realize how many people could give them more, sometimes right in front of them. You don't need Kanye for that fix. That's what I'm saying. And considering the quality is long gone to the point where you're actually starting to notice, might be worth trying to move on. Try something new. And JPEGMAFIA might be a lot, believe me, but if you're listening to Kanye in 2024, you're probably used to feeling a lot. Give him a shot. And finally, number 12, Guess by Charli XCX featuring Billie Eilish.
Send him to the day, I think he's with it. Try it, hide it, lick it, spit it, pull it to the side and get all up in it. Wear and post and might remix it. Eat it for lunch, it's so delicious.
Okay, bit of context. Of the 3 added bonus tracks to Pratt, I remember Guess probably being my favorite. The sharper popping house groove from the Dare, who is putting on his best LCD sound system impression as the synths will warble and grind, Charli XCX at her sultriest and horniest as the bass ramps up, but also keeping it loose and silly and irreverent with that Right Said Fred reference at the end of the song. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty direct. Why not add Billie Eilish in full lesbian mode, where she knows exactly what color those panties are and is cooing for Charli to join her on a lunch date, if you catch my drift. Now this has prompted some backlash, calling Billie Eilish predatory, because after years of accusing her of queerbaiting and basically outing her, those folks now want to police her queerness on a song where Charli invited her to come on board, and if Charli was uncomfortable with the verse, it would not have been cleared. This is not Do What You Want between Lady Gaga and R. Kelly a decade ago. And you know what, if you can't tell that I think this discourse is fucking stupid, especially given all the hot straight girls who really like it when their hot queer female friends hit on them or go further, certainly in the throwback 2000s indie sleaze vibe that so many want to embrace, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I like this remix. I think Billie's a great fit on it. Fun stuff. I will take this. In fact, you know what? Honorable mention this week. Best of the week, obviously, The Kink is Karma by Chappell Roan, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. And for the worst, well, again, Kanye West, Dolla $, y'all can pick your choices. It could be any of them. But in a tie, because I don't want this to get ignored, because Dirty by Jessie Murph and Teddy Swims is truly awful, and that deserves to be pointed out rather loudly. But next week, kind of tough to say. Maybe Polo G might have something. We will have to see. Stay tuned. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.